Admiral Greg Thorne stood tall on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Glory. His four-armed body cast a long shadow across the polished floor as he watched the remains of the Arcturus Coalition fleet retreat on the main view screen. The stars twinkled coldly behind them, witnesses to the final battle of a 30-year war. "They run like cowards," said Commander Vex, his second-in-command, "just as they have always done." Greg's scaled lips curved into what his species considered a smile. "But this time, they have nowhere left to run." The bridge crew of Silurians worked quietly at their stations, their gray skin reflecting the blue glow of their control panels. Victory was certain now. After 3 decades of brutal warfare across 17 star systems, the mighty Silurian Empire had crushed the 7-species alliance known as the Arcturus Coalition. "Admiral," called out the communications officer, "we are receiving word from High Command. The Coalition leadership has signed the surrender documents on Arcturus Prime." A cheer erupted across the bridge. Greg raised a hand for silence, but allowed himself a moment of pride. He had led the final push that broke the Coalition's back, destroying their last major shipyard and cutting off their supply lines. His name would be recorded in Silurian history forever. "Prepare a message to all fleet commanders," Greg ordered. "The war is won. Begin occupation protocols on all Coalition worlds." As celebrations spread throughout the Silurian fleet, a very different scene unfolded on Arcturus Prime. Deep beneath the planet's scarred surface, in a bunker designed to withstand orbital bombardment, Ambassador Zeal of the Coalition Council worked quickly. His thin fingers flew across a control panel as alarms blared around him. Zeal was the last council member still alive on Arcturus Prime. The others had either been killed in the final assault or captured by Silurian forces. His large black eyes reflected the red emergency lights as he activated an ancient communication system, separate from the Coalition's main network. A young aide stood by the door, keeping watch. "Sir, they'll break through the outer defenses in less than 20 minutes." Zeal nodded but didn't look up. "This will only take 5. The system powered up, creating a quantum channel that couldn't be detected by Silurian scanners. It was technology they had kept hidden for exactly this moment, the moment of total defeat. When the connection stabilized, Zeal spoke clearly into the transmitter. "The war is lost. Activate the human protocol." The message would travel instantly to a dozen hidden receivers across Coalition space. From there, it would reach its final destination, a small blue planet that the Silurians had never heard of, in a star system they considered insignificant. "Is it done?" asked the aide. "Yes," said Zeal, standing up straight. "Now we surrender with dignity." "Will they come?" The aide's voice trembled with a mixture of hope and fear. Zeal placed a 4-fingered hand on the young one's shoulder. "They will come, and the Silurians will learn what we learned long ago. Never underestimate humans." Back on the Eternal Glory, Admiral Greg reviewed reports from across former Coalition space. Resistance was minimal. Most planets surrendered as soon as Stellarian ships entered orbit. "It seems they've finally accepted their place in the universe," said Commander Vex. "Under Stellarian rule, as it should be." Greg nodded. "Prepare a full report for the Emperor. I want detailed accounts of all captured Coalition technology and resources." "What about their leadership?" asked Vex. "Those who surrender will be treated fairly," Greg said. "Those who resist will be examples." As the Silurian Empire celebrated their victory and began planning how to use their newly conquered territories, they remained completely unaware of a message traveling through hidden channels, unaware of a sleeping giant about to wake, unaware that the real war hadn't even begun. Far away, on a planet called Earth, a light began to blink on a console that had been silent for decades. Dr. Vila sat alone in her hidden laboratory deep beneath the surface of Proxima II, one of the few Coalition worlds not yet fully under Silurian control. Her 6-fingered hands moved quickly across the ancient computer console as she pulled up files that hadn't been accessed in over a century. The room was dark except for the blue glow of the screen that illuminated her pale, almost translucent skin. As the chief historian of the Coalition Science Division, Vila was one of the few people who knew the full truth about Earth. The screen flickered to life, showing images of a blue and green planet. "Computer, show me first contact records," she said softly. The images changed to show a Coalition scout ship hovering above a large body of water on Earth. The timestamp indicated it was 120 years ago. Humans had just begun exploring their own solar system at that time, completely unaware of the galactic community beyond. Vila remembered the debates that followed the discovery. Coalition leadership had deemed Earth too primitive for formal contact. Humans were still fighting among themselves, still burning fossil fuels, still divided by artificial borders. The Coalition's non-interference policy for developing worlds was clear. Yet something about humans fascinated certain Coalition scientists. Their unusual adaptability, their rapid technological development, their strange mix of violence and compassion. So a compromise was reached. Earth would be observed but not contacted officially. Then the war with the Xelarians began. As Coalition worlds fell one by one, a small group of leaders made a strategic decision that would change everything. They sent a secret delegation to Earth. Vila pulled up that file next. The meeting had taken place in a remote area called Montana. Coalition representatives had met with leaders from Earth's most powerful nations. They shared limited technology and knowledge, warning of the Xelarian threat, but asking humans to remain hidden from galactic affairs. A last resort, the Coalition premier had called it. "If all else fails, we will need you." Earth was placed under a stealth shield, hiding it from Xelarian sensors. For decades, humans absorbed Coalition knowledge and prepared for a war they hoped would never reach them. Regular updates were sent through hidden channels, and Coalition scientists worked secretly with humans to help them advance. Now that last resort was needed. Vila activated the emergency protocols, sending detailed war reports, Xelarian tactical information, and shield frequencies to Earth. Her hands trembled slightly. Would humans honor the old agreement? Would they risk their lives for a coalition of alien species they barely knew? She had no choice but to hope. On Earth, in a facility buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Frank Carter woke to the sound of urgent alarms. He had been dreaming of fishing at his cabin in Minnesota, but the harsh reality of his position quickly replaced those peaceful thoughts. "Sir, we have an incoming transmission on the Coalition emergency channel," said Lieutenant Gary Walsh, rushing into the room. "It's the signal we've been told to watch for." Carter nodded grimly. For 30 years, he had commanded this secret facility, training soldiers for a war that might never come. Every president since the first contact had continued the program, preparing Earth without letting the public know the full truth. He followed Walsh to the command center, where dozens of officers stared at screens showing data flooding in from across the galaxy. "Put it on the main display," Carter ordered. A simple message appeared. "The time has come. The stars need you." Carter took a deep breath. Humanity had used the decades wisely, building ships using Coalition designs, but adding their own improvements, training soldiers in both Earth and alien combat techniques, developing weapons that combined multiple technologies. "Send the alert to all command centers," Carter said. "Wake the fleet. Contact the President." Across Earth, in hidden bases under oceans, mountains, and deserts, ships that had never seen combat powered up. Soldiers who had trained their entire lives for this moment prepared for deployment. Humanity was going to war. The White House Situation Room was packed with people. The president sat at the center of the long table, surrounded by military leaders, scientists, and government officials. On screens around the room, leaders from other nations watched in stunned silence as General Carter finished explaining the truth. "So you're telling us that aliens have been at war for 30 years, and now they want our help?" the president asked, her voice steadied despite the shocking news. "Yes, Madam President," Carter replied. "The Coalition has kept us hidden and protected all this time. sharing technology while we prepared. Now they've activated the emergency protocol. The room erupted with questions. How bad was the situation? What were the Excelarians like? Could Earth's forces really make a difference in a galactic war? Carter nodded to Dr. Alan Peters, the lead scientist of the Earth Defense Program. Peters tapped on his tablet, and the main screen filled with images of destroyed planets and brutal battles. The Excelarians are conquerors, Peters explained. They believe all other species exist to serve them. They've already taken control of most coalition worlds. Billions of lives are at stake. The president looked around the room. What are our chances if we get involved? We've been preparing for this for 30 years, Carter said. Our ships incorporate coalition technology, but with human improvements they haven't seen. The Excelarians have no idea we exist. Surprise is our biggest advantage. After hours of discussion, the decision was made. Earth would honor its agreement with the coalition and join the war. The next day, Captain Olivia Baker walked through the underground hangar at the Pacific Fleet Base. 5 years ago, she had been forced to retire from the Navy after an injury. Now she had been called back to lead Earth's first combat mission in space. The hangar was massive, stretching for miles beneath the ocean floor. Hundreds of ships of various sizes stood ready, their sleek hulls gleaming under the bright lights. The largest, a battleship called the U.S. Defender, would be her command. Captain Baker, a voice called out. She turned to see Jack Miller, her former strategic officer, hurrying toward her. Looks like we're back in business. Baker smiled. I never thought we'd actually use these ships. I always hoped the coalition would win without us. Well, they need us now, Miller said. He handed her a tablet. The crew assignments just came in. We've got Lisa Rodriguez for weapons and Sam Washington for communications. Baker nodded with approval. Both were excellent officers she had worked with before. We launch in 48 hours, she said. Make sure everyone is ready. While Earth prepared for war, Admiral Greg Thorne was dealing with the challenges of occupying coalition worlds. Some had surrendered peacefully, but others were showing signs of resistance. Another sabotage report from Proxima II, Commander Vex said, handing Greg a datapad. They destroyed a supply depot. Greg frowned. Increase our forces there. I want examples made of the leaders. There's also unusual activity near the outer rim, Vex added. Some kind of signal traffic we can't decode. Probably just refugee ships trying to coordinate, Greg said dismissively. Nothing that concerns us now. How wrong he was. 48 hours later, Captain Baker stood on the bridge of the U.S. Defender as it moved into position with 50 other Earth vessels. The fleet was assembled in Earth's orbit, hidden from detection by the coalition's stealth technology. Baker looked at the faces of her crew. Some showed fear, others determination. All understood the gravity of what they were about to do. Communications, she said to Sam Washington. Send the message to all ships. Prepare for jump to coalition coordinates. Washington nodded. Message sent, Captain. All ships report ready. Baker took a deep breath. Navigation, initiate jump sequence. The stars blurred around them as the fleet leaped into faster-than-light travel, heading toward their first battle in a war that would change the galaxy forever. Sergeant Drax of the Xelarian Occupation Force yawned as he watched the sensor displays. Guarding the mining colony on Helios VI was boring duty. The local aliens, small four-eyed creatures who barely reached his waist, had surrendered without a fight. Now his job was to make sure the mines kept producing the rare metals the Empire needed. Sir, we're picking up ships approaching from Sector 9, said a young officer at the scanner station. Drax moved to look at the screen. Probably more coalition refugees. Standard procedure. Prepare to board and capture. There are a lot of them, sir, the officer said nervously, and the design is unfamiliar. Before Drax could respond, the communications panel lit up. We're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel. A face appeared on the main screen. It looked similar to some coalition species, but different. pink-skinned with brown hair and only 2 eyes. The alien wore a dark uniform with strange symbols on the collar. "Attention, Solarian forces," the alien said in clear, translated speech. "I am Captain Olivia Baker of the Earth Defense Fleet. You are occupying Coalition territory illegally. We request your immediate withdrawal from this system." Drax stared in confusion. Earth. He had never heard of such a place or species. "This is Sergeant Drax of the Solarian Empire," he replied after gathering himself. "This planet is now Imperial territory by right of conquest. Your ships will surrender immediately or be destroyed." The alien, Baker, showed no fear. "I'll give you 1 hour to evacuate your personnel." The transmission ended. Drax immediately sent an emergency message to Admiral Grek's command ship. On the bridge of the Eternal Glory, Admiral Grek received the report with irritation. "An unknown species threatening our forces," he said to Commander Vex. "Scan their ships. Let's see what we're dealing with." The scans showed 50 vessels of various sizes, using technology similar to Coalition designs, but with key differences. Their weapons systems appear to be adaptations of Coalition technology, the science officer reported, but there are elements we don't recognize. Grek dismissed the concern with a wave of his hand. "Another Coalition ally trying to appear strong after the war is lost. Send 3 destroyer-class ships to capture their vessels. We can always use more slaves in the mines." Captain Baker watched on the Defender's bridge as 3 Solarian destroyers moved toward their position. "They're powering up weapons, Captain," Lisa Rodriguez reported from the weapons station. Baker nodded. "Defensive positions. All ships form pattern Delta. Hold fire until my command." The Earth fleet moved with precision, taking positions that confused the approaching Solarians. They had never seen this formation before. "They're in range, Captain," Rodriguez said. "Open channels 1 last time," Baker ordered. Sam Washington worked his console. "Channel open." "Solarian vessels, this is your final warning," Baker said firmly. "Withdraw or we will be forced to engage." The only response was the Solarian ships accelerating and firing their first volley. Shields holding at 95%. Miller reported as the shots hit. Minimal damage. Baker's expression hardened. "All ships, weapons free. Execute Battle Plan Alpha." What happened next stunned every Solarian watching. The Earth ships moved with unexpected speed and coordination. Instead of retreating from the superior Solarian firepower, they advanced aggressively. The U.S. Defender fired its main cannons, and beams of concentrated energy cut through the lead Solarian destroyer's shields like they weren't even there. 2 smaller Earth vessels flanked the second destroyer, hitting it with precision strikes that disabled its engines and weapons. The third Solarian ship tried to retreat, but 4 Earth fighters intercepted it, their smaller weapons somehow penetrating the destroyer's armor at key structural points. In less than 4 minutes, all 3 Solarian destroyers were either destroyed or disabled, floating helplessly in space. On the Defender's bridge, Baker stood calmly. "Open a channel to whatever Solarian command base is monitoring this." When the connection was made, she spoke clearly. "This was a warning. We are humanity. The Coalition are under our protection now. Your forces have 24 hours to withdraw from all occupied territories, or we will remove them." Baker out. Across Solarian command centers, panic began to spread. Who were these humans, and how had they just destroyed 3 destroyers without losing a single ship? Admiral Greg Thorne paced the bridge of the Eternal Glory, his clawed feet clicking against the metal floor. The loss of 3 destroyers to an unknown species was unacceptable. His reputation, his very career, was at stake. "I want all available ships to converge on the Helios system," he ordered. "These humans will learn what it means to challenge the Solarian Empire." Commander Vex coordinated the massive fleet movement from his station. 20 battleships, 40 cruisers, and 60 destroyers will be in position within 6 hours, Admiral. Grek nodded with satisfaction. No force in the galaxy could stand against such firepower. In a small room off the main bridge, Intelligence Officer Drav studied the battle footage from HFY with growing concern. Something about these humans didn't make sense. He watched the battle again and again, noting patterns that disturbed him. When Drav finally requested an audience with Admiral Grek, his findings were dismissed. "You're saying they don't fight logically," Grek scoffed. "All species follow patterns of self-preservation and tactical efficiency." "Not these humans," Drav insisted. "Look here." He pointed to a segment of the battle. "This ship deliberately took damage to create an opening for others, and here they used maneuvers that put their own vessels at risk to gain positional advantage." "Desperation tactics," Grek said, waving a hand dismissively. "They know they're outmatched." "I don't think so, sir," Drav said quietly. "I think this is how they always fight." Grek ended the meeting, confident in his upcoming victory. 120 warships against 50. The outcome was certain. Meanwhile, aboard the U.S. Defender, Captain Baker met with her senior officers to plan their next move. "The Solarians are gathering a massive fleet," Jack Miller reported, showing tactical displays of enemy movements. "They'll outnumber us at least 2-1. Baker nodded calmly. "As expected. They think quantity beats quality." "Our shield modifications are holding well," Lisa Rodriguez added. "They still can't penetrate our adaptive defenses, and they don't understand how our phase cannons work." Sam Washington looked up from his communication station. "Captain, we're receiving transmissions from coalition resistance groups on 6 different planets. They want to coordinate with us." Baker smiled. "Perfect. General Carter's ground forces are ready to deploy. It's time to show the Xelarians that we don't just fight in space." As the Xelarian fleet assembled, small, stealthy transport ships from Earth slipped past their perimeter. Each carried elite soldiers trained in both Earth combat tactics and Coalition technology. On the occupied planet of Arcturus Prime, Coalition resistance leader Mira watched with amazement as human soldiers emerged from their transports in the dead of night. They wore armor that somehow blended with the surroundings and carried weapons she had never seen before. "We'll hit 3 key facilities simultaneously," explained Captain Paul Rivera, leader of the ground forces. "We need your people to guide us through the city tunnels." "The Xelarian garrison has 5,000 troops," Mira warned. "How many are you?" 200, Rivera replied with a confident smile. "More than enough." That night, across 6 different planets, human forces struck Xelarian bases, command centers, and supply depots. They attacked at night, using stealth technology, and fighting with tactics the Xelarians couldn't predict or counter. On Arcturus Prime, Rivera's team destroyed the main power facility, communications array, and weapons depot without losing a single soldier. They vanished before the confused Xelarians could mount an effective response. When the 2 fleets finally met in the empty space near HFY, Admiral Grek was already receiving disturbing reports from multiple fronts. "How can 200 troops overrun a garrison of 5,000? He demanded, slamming his fist on the command console. Before anyone could answer, the sensor officer shouted, "Enemy fleet approaching." "But they're not in standard formation." Grek watched in confusion as the human fleet split into smaller groups, each moving in patterns that made no tactical sense to him. They seemed disorganized, even chaotic. Then the battle began, and Grek quickly realized his mistake. The humans weren't disorganized. They were fighting in ways he had never seen before. Their smaller, faster ships darted between his capital ships, their seemingly random movements making them nearly impossible to target. And for the first time in his long military career, Admiral Grek Thorne felt something he had never experienced before: fear. 6 months had passed since humans entered the war. The once mighty Xelarian Empire was now fighting for its own survival. Admiral Grek Thorne stood before the Xelarian High Command, his once proud posture now bent with exhaustion. "How is this possible?" asked High Commander Zax, the eldest of the 5 leaders. How has a species we never knew existed pushed us back from 17 star systems in half a year? Greg had no good answer. Every strategy he had tried against the humans had failed. They adapted too quickly, fought too unpredictably, and showed a level of coordination with coalition forces that seemed impossible. Their technology is not superior to ours, Greg explained. But they use it in ways we never considered. They modify their shields to create weak points that lure our ships into traps. They sacrifice ships to gain tactical advantages. They fight. He struggled to find the words. They fight like they have nothing to lose, even when they're winning. On the coalition world of Proxima II, Dr. Vila worked alongside human scientists in a newly established joint research facility. The coalition had shared all their technology with Earth, but now humans were bringing fresh ideas that hadn't occurred to coalition engineers in centuries. The quantum field generator is stable, announced Dr. Eric Nelson, a physicist from Earth. We've successfully modified it to disrupt Solarian shield frequencies. Vila watched with amazement. In just 6 months, human and coalition scientists had developed more new weapons and defense systems than the coalition had created in the previous 50 years of war. In orbit above them, Lisa Rodriguez supervised the installation of new weapons systems on coalition ships. Her team had adapted Earth's nuclear technology with coalition quantum engineering, creating weapons that could bypass even the strongest Solarian defenses. The targeting system needs to be more precise, she told a coalition engineer. We don't want to destroy their planets, just their military capacity. The engineer looked confused, but they would destroy ours without hesitation. Rodriguez shook her head. That's not how we fight. We're here to win the war, not to become like them. On the occupied world of Arcturus Prime, a daring mission was underway. Jack Miller led a small team of human and coalition special forces toward a heavily guarded Solarian communications hub. Intelligence had identified it as the central node of the Solarian strategic network. Remember, we need their encryption keys intact, Miller reminded his team as they approached the facility under cover of darkness. Minimal damage to the central computers. The raid lasted less than 20 minutes. When it was over, Miller's team had captured the most valuable intelligence prize of the war, access to the entire Solarian communication network. Back on Earth, in the underground command center, General Carter reviewed the strategic situation with his staff. Screens showed the positions of Earth and coalition forces across the galaxy, pushing back against Solarian control on multiple fronts. They're searching for Earth, Carter said, pointing to intercepted Solarian communications. They believe if they can find our homeworld, they can end this war. Sam Washington, temporarily recalled from the U.S. Defender, stepped forward. My communications team has created a deception network. We're broadcasting false signals from empty star systems. As far as the Solarians can tell, Earth could be in any of 20 different locations. Carter nodded with approval. Keep them guessing. The longer they spend looking for us, the more time we have to push them back. Meanwhile, Captain Baker led the Defender and a strike force of 30 ships toward the largest Solarian shipyard. This would be their boldest move yet, a direct attack on the Empire's ability to replace their losses. All ships report ready, Captain, her first officer announced. Baker took a deep breath. This battle could be the turning point of the war. Signal all ships, she ordered. Begin the attack run. As Earth forces struck deeper into Solarian territory, Admiral Grech faced a harsh reality. For the first time in its 5,000-year history, the Solarian Empire was no longer conquering. It was being conquered. Admiral Grech Thorne stood alone in his private quarters aboard what remained of the Eternal Glory. The great flagship had been badly damaged in the last battle, just like the Solarian Empire itself. A chime sounded, indicating an incoming transmission from the High Command. Admiral, said High Commander Zax, his voice tight with anger. The humans have broken through our final defensive line. They will reach our homeworld within days. Grech lowered his head. I understand, sir. I accept my punishment for failure." Zax was silent for a moment. The usual penalty would be execution, but the High Command has decided to give you one last chance. You have studied these humans more than anyone. Find a way to stop them. After the transmission ended, Greg moved to his personal data terminal. For the first time, he decided to truly understand his enemy. He gathered every piece of information about humans, including the data stolen from Coalition archives. What he found shocked him. Unlike the Xilarians, who had a history of 5,000 years of steady conquest, humans had spent most of their history fighting themselves. Their planet had seen countless wars, with tactics constantly evolving as they found new ways to defeat each other. Greg read about human wars where smaller forces defeated larger ones through cleverness. He read about human leaders who refused to surrender even when defeat seemed certain. He read about entire human nations that continued fighting after their cities were destroyed. "Computer," he said suddenly, "access the Coalition's first contact records with Earth. Why did they hide humans from us?" The answer was not what he expected. The Coalition hadn't kept humans hidden because they were ashamed of such primitive allies. They had hidden them because they feared them, and because they knew humans would be their greatest weapon if all else failed. It was a strategy Greg himself might have devised, had he known. As the combined human and Coalition fleet approached the Xilarian homeworld, Captain Baker prepared for the final battle. The U.S. Defender had seen dozens of engagements, its hull marked with scars from Xilarian weapons. But it still flew, still fought. "All ships report ready, Captain," San Washington announced from his station. Baker nodded. "Open a channel to all vessels." When the channel was open, she spoke clearly. "This is Captain Baker. Today we end this war. Remember our mission. We fight to bring peace, not to destroy. Target military installations only. Civilian areas are strictly off-limits." The fleet moved into position, ready for what they expected to be the hardest fight yet. But as they approached weapons range, something unexpected happened. "Captain," Washington said, surprise evident in his voice, "we're receiving a transmission from the Xilarian flagship. It's Admiral Greg Thorne himself." "On screen," Baker ordered. Admiral Greg's face appeared before them. He looked tired, his gray scales dull with exhaustion. "Captain Baker," he said formally, "I request a meeting to discuss terms." Baker's eyes narrowed. "Terms of surrender," Greg clarified. "The Xilarian Empire wishes to end this war." Hours later, Baker sat across from Greg in a neutral meeting place, a Coalition diplomatic vessel. Representatives from all 7 Coalition species were present as